is a very like we are not just confined to one thing, right? I am not just my culture. I am not just. So what happens is, if I am not just my culture, I will need something out of my culture also to survive. Okay, but think of it this way: I have something out of my culture on which I'm surviving, but I don't know my culture. That creates a void in me also.
Yo homes, welcome to the second episode of my podcast. I am calling it Exploring Beyond the Superficial, and as the name says, what I'm trying to do here is discuss a common topic that gets ignored a lot, although it affects all of us. And I do that with a guest in each episode. And in this episode, which is a continuation from episode 1, in my conversation with a friend of mine, Aditya Mohan, about concept of nostalgia and identity. And in this episode we'll get deeper into his personal experience as a non-Bengali in Bengal and the divide between the concepts of identity in Bengal and in India in general. So let us begin with this episode.
It is funny, bro. Like when I'm mistaken for Bengali, you know what happens when people say, "Are you Bengali?" I say, "Guess." I've made a game out of it. I say, "Guess." Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you can be anything about it. Just don't be condescending, because a person's identity matters a lot to them. I can say it because every person has a phase in his life where they think they don't belong. Okay. And what happens is, when you feel you don't belong, the nearest thing you look for is community, friends, community, people you can relate to, people who have the same custom, same culture, okay, people you understand. But if everyone you understand is going through the same problem of identity crisis, okay, like, think, I don't know where I am from after I moved to Bengal, okay, I don't know, like, I'm born in Bengal, and I see, like, think of me as a kid, okay, I'm born in Bengal, and I'm a very curious kid. I'm questioning everything. So my first question becomes like, why are my traditions different from their traditions? Okay. The second point that comes to my mind is, that means we are not same. Okay. So where do I look for comfort? I look for comfort in people I know, in customs I know, in the environment I grew up in. Okay. Now what happens is, if my entire family is going through identity crisis, they have moved to Bengal and they also are feeling like they don't belong here, they will not be able to help me. Okay. So what happens in the hills is, this identity issue, okay, comes up solely for one and one reason itself, is them being mistaken for something they are not. Okay. What happens is, later, when this thing happened and they were dissatisfied and all, the whole narrative changes when politics gets involved. Okay. When politics gets involved, people start thinking identity means opportunities. Identity is not opportunity. Okay. Identity is never opportunity. People think, if people accept Nepalis, then I will get a chance. So identity is never opportunity. Identity might be, it's like,
identity, it's identity, as you said, is more of a comfort thing.
Yeah, it's like, you belong, bro. Everyone should know where they belong. That's it. Like, even I know a lot of people who convert from a religion to a different religion because they think that religion suits them better. Okay, there's always a choice. Why do they do it? Because they think they belong to that religion. They think that religion brings them more solace. Okay. Like, back in the day when church was converting people to Christianity, okay, a lot of people stayed back because church is like a cult, no? So they felt like they belong. They felt like they belonged to the church.
In fact, this identity, this hunger for identity is something cults grow on. That's how they take. Not all cult. There's a negative connotation to the term cult, but sometimes
Yeah.
cults can be good. But even when the cults are good, that's what they're growing on.
Yeah.
People need
See,
to
the
feel
thing
like
is-
they belong.
the thing is, if you have an identity issue, you'll have insecurity. Okay. So if you are insecure, if I am an insecure person, okay, think I'm insecure about my weight. So if someone makes fun of my weight, I'll get offended. If I'm insecure about think I don't know how to play football, okay, or like I know how to play football, but I am insecure. I think
That
that
I'm
I don't
not
know
good
how
enough, or
to good
like
enough.
I'm not good enough.
Yeah. So if someone makes fun of me playing football, it will obviously affect me because I am insecure, not because that
Yeah,
person makes
exactly.
fun of
Which
me.
is why, like, when people get confused about our identity, us, I mean, you and me, we don't care. We just make a joke out of it because that's not something we are insecure about. But
Yeah, we are not used to it so much to be insecure about it. Okay, but
no,
think
I
if
don't
this
think getting used to something doesn't cure someone's insecurity.
it happened to you once with your friend. Okay,
Not
think
once, it happened quite a few times. Like, but I just don't care. It's not something I'm insecure
this
about.
way. You're walking on the street and you cross 20 people on the street and every 20 person asks you the same thing. That is when it becomes an identity issue. That is when you become insecure about it. That is when you start thinking, do I actually look so much like a Muslim that people are thinking of me as a Muslim? And if someone tells you a thing 100 times, that will start affecting you because you'll get insecure about it.
That's a bit
Because
different, but that can happen.
true. Something is not true, and you keep hearing it 100 times, you will
Yeah, you
get
will
pissed.
have doubts about it, and
You'll get I get pissed if someone keeps saying something which is not. I get pissed, bro. So you will get pissed. That happens. But what I'm trying to say is this whole thing about uh, identity comes from that place of insecurity. Okay, where do I belong? What is uh, when you go to Darjeeling, you'll see on the walls written "Land is my birthright." Okay,
Achha. I have been
so
to Darjeeling once, but it was with my parents. It was a one-day visit, so I didn't explore much. Which place are you talking about exactly?
uh, while going on wrong, bro. Oh, another thing which I wanted to talk about and I forgot about it. You just reminded me. The thing is, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this or not, but Bengal has always treated Darjeeling as its colony. Okay, like uh, think of it this way: America was Europe's colony, right? British colony was America. The same way, Darjeeling is a colony for Bengalis right now. Because they go there during the summers, they enjoy, they dirty the place, they come back. Who has to clean? The people who are staying back there. So getting it. So people out there also have started feeling that Bengalis are colonizers. They are not doing anything for the place. They are not speaking about the place. They just say we love Darjeeling, we love Darjeeling. At the end of the day, you are coming, you are destroying the place and saying I love Darjeeling and then going back. So they think that Bengalis are colonizers, and it actually feels like Darjeeling is Bengal's colony, bro. Because if you look at it, it is exactly the way a colony is treated. Money comes out from Darjeeling, goes into the development of Calcutta, does not go into the development of Darjeeling. Okay, so that is an issue that they have there also. Their repentance towards Bengal, their anger towards Bengal comes from this thing as well. That Bengal says it's our hills, but Bengal never does anything for the hills. And the people who are living there also cannot call it their hills because if they come to Calcutta, everyone says to them, go to Nepal. Okay. So the whole issue of identity, the whole problem of identity is this itself that even if I know I belong somewhere, a person coming and questioning it 100 times will make me also question it that where do I belong? And if you know where you belong, half your problem is solved. Because I'll tell you, I feel very lost in Bengal since I'm not a Bengali, okay? But I have adapted to the culture. Adapting to the culture and belonging to a culture is not the same thing.
No,
Okay,
that's
like
true.
one Bengali will come during Durga Puja or during Chhat Puja to me and say, I love Bihari culture, I love that you guys do Chhat Puja, okay? But I am the one who is waking up 2 nights at 3 in the morning for Chhat Puja, not that Bengali guy. And I've been doing it since childhood, okay? It's the same with Durga Puja. When there is Durga Puja in a Bengali's house, it's way different than what it is in my house, bro. In my house, the thing is, I am deprived of the Bihari essence in my house also and the Bengali essence in my house also. So where is it that I belong? Where am I? I'm not a Bengali by birth. I'm a Bihari by birth, but I know that culture better. Still, it's not followed in my house completely. So where do I stand?
About that, I have one curiosity. Like, did your parents come to Bengal, or it's a bit?
My grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah. So my grandfather was living in Bihar, and his father was working in a jute mill in Calcutta before independence. This is before independence.
Achha.
And then my grandfather, after he got married very young, when he was 10, 11, like that. Then he moved here when he was 18, 19 to Siliguri. Like he worked under one of his brother-in-laws. He worked under him, and then he came to Kuch Bihar and he set up the business and everything. So the thing is, which I realized this time when I went to Bihar is that my grandfather never lost touch with Bihar. Okay, because we had a house here, we have a house in Bihar also, and that house is equally as good as the house which is here. He built the house himself there as well, the way he built the house here. So the thing is, he was always connected to his roots. Okay, he knew where he was from, so he was always very strong when it came to that. So if you identify as something, you have a like how companies, how influencers and all have communities. Okay. What is a community? That same thing is a community. You feel like you belong. A place where people share the same interest. They can talk about the same thing. So the thing is, human is a very like, we are not just confined to one thing, right? I am not just my culture. I am not just. So what happens is, if I am not just my culture, I will need something out of my culture also to survive. Okay, but think of it this way. I have something out of my culture on which I'm surviving, but I don't know my culture. That creates a void in me also.
Okay, like I mean, I'm getting what you're pointing at, but I'm not completely getting it.
I have the thing is, think of it this way. Tomorrow, you move to America. Okay, you have a job.
Okay.
You get kids. Okay, you don't like. I don't think we do pujas and all. No one does it anymore from our generation. Okay.
Actually, apparently, I can see that people do that in our generation too, but we don't.
We like with my parents and all. It is like a daily kind of a thing. Okay.
No, I'm not talking about parents. I'm talking about like our friends.
Our generation has become very. It
has reduced down in our parents' generation. I'm talking hypothetically here. Suppose in our parents' generation, 90% of the people did puja. So in our generation, it probably has come down to 40 or something like that. Maybe at this age, it's probably even lower, like 30%, let's say. And when we get a little older, probably that will grow to 40% or something like that. So that's the thing. At least.
So what I'm trying to say is, think you move to America, okay? You have kids there. They will be growing up with American culture, and America has no culture apparently. Which is what I think. That American culture.
America is also completely adapted from different cultures.
Yeah, from different cultures. America
90% of. Yeah, I know.
The American culture is red Indians.
Yeah, I know.
Culture is the real American culture.
But now it's an amalgam of everything.
Because of modernization. So what
not
is happening?
Not just modernization. It's because of two things. Modernization is everywhere. It's not just an America thing. There are the country of America, the United States of America, as we know it, was established by immigrants.
Yeah.
By definition.
Yeah.
Of course, they won't call themselves immigrants, but basically it was established by immigrants. And then what happened? It became a safe space for other immigrants. So in the initial days, there was very heavy immigration just to find a safe space. And then during the Cold War and the World War, America grew as a nation for trade and for GDP and as growth. And that attracted people for that. And now it has become an amalgam of everything. So hence it doesn't have a unified culture.
See, globalization happened in America faster than it happened anywhere else. Also.
Yeah, exactly. That's something else.
So what I'm trying to say is, you go there and your kids are born up in an environment like that. And Bengali culture, on the contrary, is very rich, okay? And Bengalis love to stay true to their roots.
Yeah.
What happens is, I have seen a lot of Bengalis. I had a friend in Bombay. She was a Bengali, but she could speak, but not very properly. Like, I could speak better Bengali than her. She couldn't. It's like that, bro, because she always lived in Bombay her entire life. And like I told you, for Bombay is its own world. Okay. So what happened is, her culture, her custom, like, for me, it's very normal, that Bengali custom. Okay. Like, at my home, I can eat payesh anytime. But at her home, payesh is only cooked when something special happens.
Achha.
So
actually, payesh is also something. In my home as well, payesh is something that is cooked when something special happens. But
no, but you can eat it normally also, right?
A lot of actually, in average Bengali home, it's that. It's just my home is a bit exception simply because I'm lactose intolerant. So, like, moms mainly cook for their kids. You know how Bengali moms work. So they cook for other people as well, but their primary person they cook for is their kids. So
when you go to America and have kids, okay, do you think they will be as heavily invested in your culture as you are right now? I don't think so, bro. Because modernization is such a thing. No, culture is old, customs are old. Okay, like when people are getting. So think, when your kids who have lived in America their entire life will have kids in your grandkids ka wedding, no one will do hulu like. It's like that. I know a lot of people in my generation who don't know how to do that. Like,
I can't do that. I don't have anything against it. I just can't do that. It bothers me. I've tried learning it, but I just couldn't.
No, but that's the thing, bro. It is a part of your culture, right? Anything happening, it's like Aarti happens. After Aarti, they do. No, that's the weirdest. People are going away from their culture so much that maybe 30, 40, 50 years down the line, people will say, when I used to have my birthdays, my mom used to make payesh and she used to give me blessings, and then the elder women in the house used to do. The way we describe old televisions to kids nowadays will be describing culture and custom to them in the same way, which is not good. You should always preserve your custom and culture, or else you will be lost. You know why? Because that preservation is very important, bro. Like I told you, Lepchas were on the brink of extinction, okay? Cultural assimilation, adopting to the culture of Nepalis, saved them from extinction. Okay. Or when Nepalis kind of conquered the hills, Lepchas were on the brink of extinction. Maybe they were killed, or maybe they were not being able to survive with the zoom cultivation, whatever happened back in the day. So their customs and cultures became indifferent to them, no? Like, their customs and cultures were very different than Nepalis. But once the assimilation happened, their cultures got merged with the Nepali culture, right? So this whole thing that the whole belt speaks Nepali and not the language of Lepchas or Bhutias or Lamas.
But
Again,
wouldn't they be talking in their native tongue, at least in the homes?
that's the thing, no, bro. You don't know. Like, I am a Bihari, but I speak to my parents in Hindi at home. I don't speak in Bhojpuri.
And your parents speak to each other in Hindi?
In Hindi. Yeah. The last line, my parents spoke to my grandparents in Bhojpuri. My mother still speaks to her sisters in Bhojpuri. My father speaks to his brother in Bhojpuri. But amongst ourselves, we speak in Hindi. So it happens, bro. That is a very that is what I'm trying to explain. That so one whole tribe, Lepcha tribe, learned a new language, got accustomed to the new cultures. Okay, that is what will happen to your kids. You will tell them stories about from your time when you were a kid, what your culture was like, because they will not be able to experience it. Okay, so that is probably what happens is Lepcha households also now. They probably they speak in Nepali and they talk about how back in the day Lepchas used to worship the Tista river or these stories, or how that guy, he told me the story, the legend, the story of that legend, that shouts and the teacher comes. So these customs and cultures will just become stories, bro, if it's not preserved. Okay, because it will not be practiced. So that's what I think, like identity, culture, custom, racial profiling, and toxic nostalgia is kind of the theme of the documentary. Okay, but it's also very important to understand because of what it is, because that connection, okay, that how you have grown up, your upbringing and my upbringing is different. On your birthdays, foods are different. On my birthday, foods are different. When a Bengali gets married, there is non-veg. When a Bihari gets married, there is no non-veg in the wedding. But we eat non-veg, yeah. But we eat non-veg normally. Bengalis eat non-veg normally. So a lot of customs have mixed, a lot of cultures have mixed. Even like I told you, maybe 2 generations down the line, people won't be able to do Hululu anymore, in weddings or in birthdays and all. So preservation is important, making people
But
understand.
Even when it comes to preservation, you see a lot of thing about in cultures, in every culture, some part of it is something that it's not. I don't think some part of it is about something that shouldn't be preserved.
Yeah, that's the thing, bro. My grandfather, he came here. He kept his root connected. Okay, he kept his roots connected. But
no, I'm not talking about the roots and the culture overall.
But I'm pretty sure that there were times in his life when he felt like the culture or Bihar, the place where he lived in Bihar, wasn't for him. Maybe he wanted to get out of it, but he knew his culture. He had something to fall back on. People in the coming will not have anything to fall back on.
That's not what I'm denying. What I'm saying is, every culture has some part of it that
customs are bad. Yes, it is there.
So I don't think
Bengal has an extortion culture, okay, which is bad. Bengal's extortion culture is very bad. If you want to build a house in any locality, you have to pay the club in that locality also money. Okay, you know this, right? Like, if I'm buying a house in, say, maybe near Khagrawadi, then I have to pay to that Khagrawadi club. I'll have to pay them also some money. Okay, if I want the house, that is an extortion culture. The whole Dadagiri culture in Bengal is wrong. Even some tradition, some religion, believing in God and all, you might think it's wrong, but a lot of people.
No, I don't think it's wrong. I don't think believing in God is wrong. I think believing in God is stupid. But someone believing it is that's problem. That's not a thing. What I find wrong is people forcing the belief onto someone else. That's what I think.
Yes, that is wrong. Yeah. So a lot of thing in Biharis also, I'm pretty sure my grandfather didn't like. That is why he moved to Bengal to do business, right?
Yeah, that
So
also might be just a case of business opportunity, you know. For example,
business
see,
opportunity, I don't think it was like that, bro. Because see, what happens with Biharis multiply a lot. Okay, the reproduction in Biharis are crazy. Okay, so what happens is a lot of Biharis move out also. Okay, like most of the laborers and all, they say come from Bihar areas, because these people, when you will go back to Bihar, you will see these people have uh, like land, which you'll not be able to imagine how big lands they have. Okay, you'll never be able to imagine how big lands they have. But they don't work at the home. They don't want to do farming. They want to see. The thing is, I'll give you a very nice example with Darjeeling's this thing. When I was doing interview, a lot of the kids in Darjeeling run away. Okay, a lot of the kids from the hills, they run away when they are young to metropolitans. You know why they do that? Because when uh, they have nothing there, bro. They'll get educated, then they'll have to work in the tea gardens. Okay, so instead of working in the tea gardens and making minimum wage, they will go out of that place. They will go to Pune, Calcutta, or some metropolitan, and they will earn meager minimum wage. But according to a cosmopolitan, according to a metropolitan, they will earn minimum wage, and they will try to improve their lifestyle. Okay, but that is what they don't understand. You can have a good lifestyle at your native place itself. Okay, you can have a good lifestyle in Darjeeling, but the government doesn't give you enough to have a good lifestyle there. So
but if it's all about having a good lifestyle,
uh,
I won't deny that government should play a role in that, but you cannot just sit and wait on the government to improve your lifestyle. Even
no,
if it's
bro.
something you deserve, even if it's something you should get, you cannot just sit back and wait for the government to do it for yourself, right?
No, bro. Like that is what I believe is wrong. Because see, I gave vote to a party because they promised me jobs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they promised me that they'll give me jobs. They promised me that they'll remove poverty. They promised me certain things. That is why I gave vote to them. Okay, and they have been in power for years and years, and they haven't done anything. So how there are a lot of things that are beyond a person's capability to develop. Okay, I cannot go and make roads.
Huh.
I can. That is what I'm saying. These people will not make roads or work in a. Do you think you'll come to Kuch Bihar and work in a restaurant?
No, because I don't have to.
But if you need money
Mm-hmm.
in Bhubaneswar or Pune or Bangalore, and it's like a side job that you'll get a little extra pocket money, won't you do it? I will do it because no one knows me there. Okay,
That no one knows me there is a thing that works here. That's something that works.
so that's the thing. Like these people will be looking for a better life and going outside. The thing is, I can do that in Kuch Bihar also and earn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going out and doing the same thing and earning and paying rent and living when I can just stay here, live for free and earn money? Okay, doing the same thing, but I'll not do it because for me, that much money will not suffice this lifestyle. Once I go out, whatever money I get from there, I will adapt to a lifestyle which will be different from mine right now, but it will be way more independent.
Huh.
Are you okay? So,
Independence is something that matters to a lot of people. In fact, it's something that matters to me as well.
but that independence is also a hoax, bro. Because see, what these people do, like I told you, they move out, they migrate, they try to do a lot of work and all that. Had they done the same thing at their home, okay, there would be a feeling of liberation. Like
But
you, but that's the thing, you cannot do it there because the government hasn't given you enough facilities to do
no,
it there.
if it's independence what they're looking for, in that case, going out makes more sense than trying to do it in in the native place, because in the native place they will be answerable to people who live there. primarily their parents.
The first thing you missed, the first thing I told was they run away from their houses for a better life. Kids. Yeah. So running away is wrong, no?
No, running away is wrong. Like running away is wrong and it's kind of stupid as well. But if it's independence, if independence is your primary concern, in that case, running away makes sense because you're not looking for better life. You're looking for more independence
and better life.
Yeah, and because better life, but that the priority.
I meant independence in the terms of monetary independence, not like.
I know. I know it's not monetary independence, which is why running away makes practical sense.
Monetary independence you can get even sitting at home, bro, if you are earning. Monetary independence is money, okay? But feeling of independence, okay?
That's what I'm talking about.
That is not what I am talking about. I am talking about monetary independence. See, these people now, you know this term called brain drain, right? So if youth who could have studied and made something of their life run away at that age and start working, okay, there is a brain drain for Darjeeling. Okay. Because it is brain drain for Darjeeling because that person could have studied and done something for the community. Rather than that person ran away, doesn't have proper education, okay, and is doing something which may or may not, okay, like impact the world. In most cases, it may not. Okay, so
even if they want to, if they want to do something that impacts the world, most of the people fail at doing something that impacts the world.
Because bro, the first thing is education. Okay? If you don't know, the thing is knowing what you are, where you belong, what's your history. Okay, if I myself didn't know that I was ruled by Britishers for 200 years, okay, that angst itself will not come. But this is what people don't understand. Like, you know, another thing which I was telling you about how they always have a complex, like they always have an insecurity kind of thing. Also comes from this, like, you know how I told you, like, Bengal treats Darjeeling like its colony. So when you go there, and basically Darjeeling is like a very tourist area, no? So everyone there will treat you with like respect, okay? But that is like a colonizer's respect. So why? They'll call you Sahab. That is the Bengali nostalgia you have to get out of. No, this happens, bro. Like, I have seen a lot of Bengalis, okay? If someone will come and call them Sahab, no, they'll melt, bro. They'll melt. Oh my God. Because that is, you know, this whole Sahab thing comes from the Zamindari thing, right?
I know, totally.
It is a toxic nostalgia. If someone comes and tells Sahab to a Bengali guy, that guy met, bro, I've seen this like so many times.
I know, especially if you look into our parents' generation. Oh boy.
But that's the thing. That is why Darjeeling thinks, like, what thinks? It's evident, bro. Like, it treats it like a colony. You can see it everywhere. You can go, and the thing is, not just that. There is a problem within the people itself. Okay, so another problem that these people have, since they don't know where they belong, Lepchas, Bhutias, Nepalis, not. A lot of the time, there is a fight within the community itself. Because, again, there are two kinds of Nepalis, okay? One who has migrated to India long ago, and they have been living here since 7, 8 generations, 10 generations, 200 years, their family has been living here, okay? And then there is another Nepali which migrated just now, or which holds a citizenship of Nepal, okay? So that is what is very, like, again, so there is a fight between these two, Indian Gorkha and Nepalis. Like, Nepalis from Nepal and Indian Gorkhas. That's why they don't want to be called Nepalis.
This is something just not only, this is something that's not, what should I say, exclusive to Darjeeling. I've seen that this happens in every community. Like every community is a minority in some way, in some place. But when a community becomes majority, it gets subdivided into another section of majority and minority. For example, a easy example would be the Muslim community. In most of the, they are mistreated in a lot of places because they are the minority there. But when you look into places where they are the majority, they then get divided into Shia and Sunni, where one of them is the minority, and it keeps getting deeper. India.
See, the thing is, the world is how many years old? Like,
I think a few billion. 5 billion, I think. I'm not sure. 5 or 7 billion, I think. Talking about Earth.
Yeah, like, and it has gone through so much, like dinosaurs.
Yeah, it didn't even it didn't even have any form of life for most of its life.
For its life, yeah. Like, it took so much. Like, it took so much time. Okay, then there was the whole evolution period. Okay, so from going from like Homo erectus to Homo sapien, or even before that, like when they were just apes, we looked like apes. Okay, so we have gone through a lot. Okay, and then civilization, society, modernization. So much has happened. Okay, in the middle there was Renaissance. A lot of shit has happened. So do you think like all the customs in Bengal of Bengalis are the same that it was when,
no,
like, probably
customs keep changing?
Huh? Who was the first Bengali? Who was the first Bengali? Who was the, you don't know, man. Like, so in one book I was reading, it's called Why I'm Not a Hindu. Okay.
Acha.
It's.
I like the title.
It's by Ambedkar's friend. What's his name? Kancha Ilahi Ilyaha Shepherd. That's his name. Kanchan Ilyas Shepherd, like that.
What is he? That's a very weird combination of name.
Right, Kanchan? He's a tribal, bro. Kanchan Ilaya.
Kanchan Ilaya is the short name, but I think he has a longer name for somehow. Okay, no, it's just
Kanchan Ilaya Shepherd. Okay. He's 68 years old. So he was a very close acquaintance with Ambedkar, okay, whatever. So I think someone told that to me. I'm still not sure, but whatever. So he says something like the whole term, like I told you, the term Bengali never existed until the first Sepoy Mutiny. Okay, so this guy tells something like the word Hindustan never existed. There was no Hindus. There were certain sets of gods. And they were divided. The whole caste system comes from the occupation they were doing.
Actually.
His name is Kancha Eliha Shepherd because his family were a family of shepherds, cattle rearers. Okay, so everyone's name.
But shepherd is an English word.
Yeah, like I don't know why, but he tells something like that. Like his family is a.
It makes sense. What I'm saying is, he didn't get the name shepherd when. I mean, I'm pretty sure it came to his family, the title shepherd, in much later years, because shepherd is an English word.
Yeah, that can be like because he was there during the time of Britishers, right? So he talks about how they were a family of shepherds and like how he never knew that there was something called Hinduism or Hindustan for a very long time until there were always that caste system, okay? Then they took all the castes and put it inside Hinduism. Okay. He talks about religion. He talks about their stories. In Why I'm Not a Hindu, when he negates so many things, he talks about how Sita had to walk the fire to prove that she was like she did not have any relations with Ravan. She had to walk the fire just to prove her loyalty towards Ram, and then she disintegrated herself. So he talks about a lot of things that was wrong with Indian gods. Another thing which he notices is how Indian gods always use violence to bring peace.
It's not just an Indian god's thing, to be honest. If you look
It's
into religion, it's almost every god.
that. But the thing is, if you look at Jesus, okay, he never had a weapon.
But Jesus is not a god. Jesus is the son of God.
Jesus is son of God, yeah. But then that's the thing, like a lot of gods have had weapons, a lot of god, but in Indian mythology, all the gods have weapons. Okay, every god's fight is good over evil, like that.
Huh.
So we are always conditioned to believe that something is right and something is wrong. Okay.
Conformist.
But that is a moral thing, right? To me, something is right. To me, bank robbery is wrong, but to a bank robbery is fine. You're getting it. It's always a moral line that is there between right or wrong.
And there's one more thing about both nostalgia and religion. In fact, they work a bit similar. In fact, religion runs a lot on nostalgia. If you look into religions, you will see that there are a few things on the doctrines.
The glory. Yeah, they talk about the glory.
Not just the glory. The glory is all nostalgia. I'm saying that in any doctrine you look, you will find that there are a few things that you will find very questionable now. But if you look into that, it made sense when it was written. For example, in all the Abrahamic religions, the age of marriage, the age of consent and all is pretty young. But if you think about it, people didn't have life expectancy of 70, 80 years back then. So for example, in Egypt, the pharaohs used to marry and reproduce at very young age, like 10, 12, 15, 8. It wasn't even child marriage, it was a norm. But if you look into Egypt's history, their life expectancy was 20 years, 30 years, like that. So if you live for 30 years, it makes sense if you get married at 8 and 10. But if you tell someone that, okay, my ancestors used to get married at 8 years, so I should get married at 8 years, my son should get married at an age of 8 years, that's just bonkers. That's just bonkers. But that's how religion works. It has been written here, so it has to stay that way. That's just stupid.
So this reminds me of something by Charles Darwin. So it says like it's not the strongest of the species that survives, okay? Nor the most intelligent, but the one responsive to change. But the one most responsive to change. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So, see, at the end of the day, since the inception of time, since the inception of man, the only thing that man wanted was survival, okay? To survive. How long to survive? That has always been the aim, okay? Survival of the fittest or whatever they say. But people forget this, that, in order to survive, you should be ready to adapt. But do you see the correlation? Like, humans are scared of change, but in order to survive, you have to change.
And one of the reasons people are scared of change is about identity. People associate a state with their identity. Yeah, it sounds weird, but people actually do that. Which is why when you bring facts and logic against something people believe, they don't just see it as an attack on their belief. They see it as an attack on their identity, which is why they get furious and so defensive instead of having a practical perspective discussion on it or something like that.
That's how Darjeeling becomes a very beautiful point because of this. Because see, they fought for the independence of India. Okay, we are never taught about any of their freedom fighters. We are never taught about any freedom fighter from the south also. So whatever. Now, what happens with Darjeeling is, what did you say just now about identity and
the resistance to change.
Yeah, so there this thing comes from, identity issue comes from them being mistaken as everything other than in England. Okay, because India is so ignorant, it doesn't, outside of Bengal, people don't even know where Darjeeling is. Most people don't know where Darjeeling is. And Darjeeling is a very beautiful concept because of this. Because, see, what happens with Kashmir is an anti-national issue. Okay, like Kashmir does not want to stay with India. Okay, Darjeeling wants to stay with India, but doesn't want to stay with Bengal because every culture, every custom is different from Bengal's customs and cultures. Everything is like, see, Bihari and Bengali still have some customs and cultures which is similar, okay, but Nepali custom and culture is completely different. Also, Nepalis also have Hindus who follow Hindu customs and culture. Their food is different again. Okay, so custom and culture is not just religion, it is a mixture of a lot of things.
Yeah. See, people often, people in general believe that culture comes from religion. Actually, it's the completely opposite of that. Religious.
It comes from your community, bro, where you live.
And
that is the culture.
Yeah, totally. And it's actually the reverse of that. Like, religious customs come from the culture the religion is born in.
So, like, someone told me this, okay, when you are going to this thing, Darjeeling, it becomes an identity issue because a Bengali guy in Darjeeling is also a Gorkha. Okay. A Hindu guy in Darjeeling is also a Gorkha. A Muslim guy in Darjeeling is also a Gorkha. A Nepali guy in Darjeeling is also a Gorkha.
You mean someone from Darjeeling or someone going to Darjeeling?
If you go and stay there for 5 years, you are a Gorkha.
So someone like of Darjeeling. Got it.
Yeah, because I lived in Pune for so long, I am from Pune, okay? But if I lived in Darjeeling for so long, Darjeeling will accept you, okay? Darjeeling literally accepts you. You become a Gorkha because you learn the language very fast. That is the thing, they don't discriminate between people as Gorkhas. You are an outsider if you come from outside to study, that's it. But if you live there, your house is there, your parents live there, or just you live there, your house is there, you've lived there for 10 years, you've worked there, you know the language, you know the people, you are a Gorkha. That is what they believe, okay? Everyone there is a Gorkha. Everyone who lives there believes in their cause as a Gorkha. Okay? So you can be Hindu, Muslim, they don't mind about that. You can look like me, you can look like them, you can look like anyone. They don't care. Just the thing is, that is what is so beautiful about it, you know, they are not discriminating on the basis of color, caste, religion, creed. Because, again, it's in one of the interviews, one guy, he told me that Darjeeling has Mahakal temple. No, Darjeeling's biggest temple is Mahakal temple. So in Mahakal temple, a Buddhist priest and a Hindu Pandit, they both sit together and do puja.
Seriously?
I'll show you. That is the thing. That is what I'm saying. That is why it's so beautiful, no? That is why this becomes a very beautiful thing. Like,
Buddhist kind of version of Hinduism in the looks and all is also found in other places Hinduism had spread. For example, if you the Myanmar, the places around Myanmar, I don't remember the names of the places, but beyond the northeast of India, in the Myanmar, Burma, those regions, Hinduism also spread there. And if you go to any Hindu temple there, you will find that it looks more like a Buddhist temple. But it's a Hindu temple. Like, it wasn't converted or something. It is a Hindu temple. So, yeah. It's once again it proves the point that like religion comes more from the culture and not the other.
Because people lived there so long, no, bro. What can we say about it? You tell me. Like, you can just go and say anyone that I'm a Hindu or I'm Bihari. I am a Hindu and I'm Bihari. Okay. Or I'm Muslim and I'm Bengali.
But
Or I'm Hindu.
being a Bengali or a Bihari is a location thing. It's not a religious identity.
It is a cultural thing.
No, it is a cultural thing, but it's a cultural thing associated with a place.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's the that is division, right?
It is division, of course.
So much. Like,
and if you look into it, the division also originates it also originates from the pursuit of identity.
Bro,
at its depth.
See, someone came. That is what I was telling you. Like, we don't know, right? We don't know who was the first Bihari, who was the first Hindu. Bihar and UP almost have the same kind of custom culture, right?
This is something that confuses me. I'm not exactly sure how to deal with it.
That's the thing. Like, so who was the first? Like, was UP? So you never know, right? Because it's so back in history. It's so back in time that it has been changed to something it is not, or the stories have also evolved, okay, when it's come up. So that's what I asked you at the start, okay, that maybe 2 generations later you will be telling stories from your childhood because they will not be able to relate it since they haven't seen anything like that, okay.
That's how folklore spread.
So again, it becomes a folklore, right? So probably there was something back in the day that people told about, which got extinct, and then it started again, and then it started. Maybe a religion got extinct and started again just with the stories. So there's a lot of things that
in fact that's how mythologies happen. Like, people don't just in general, of course there might be exceptions, people don't just write out mythology. It starts with a history that gets exaggerated and spices and all, and then it turns into a mythology that's practically impossible.
So that's the whole point, bro. Like, who are we? Where do we come from? Okay.
What are we even?
What are you? We know, like, we are a combination of molecules and atoms, hydrogen, carbon. 70% of our body is water. We know those things. What are we? We know. But why are we? Like, who are we? Who are we is very important. Like, why are you? More than why are you, who are you is important. Because, I've seen a lot of people feel very confident in their own skin because they know who they are. So if you know who you are, half your battle about see, the worst part about me being brought up in Bengal is when I was a kid, there is an age when you don't think, you just do, right? When you're small, maybe 2, 3, 4 years old. So when I got to the thinking age, maybe in 3, 4, 5th, is when I started thinking that, everyone is so different. Their food is different. Like, everyone used to get tiffin. My tiffin used to be different than theirs. Deepak's tiffin used to be different than everyone's. Like, you're getting it. Everyone's. So I started thinking like, so I used to come home and tell my mom that why don't I get egg for lunch break? Okay. So my mom tells me something like they cook egg in the same kitchen. Now we have 2 different kitchens. One is vegetarian, one is non-vegetarian.
That's right.
You get it? So
it's actually something even Bengalis had. If you have Orthodox families, now it has died down a lot, but it still happens in some countries. Like if the family is a bit Orthodox, a little conservative, then they don't have entire different kitchen, but they subdivide the kitchen into veg part, non-veg.
Like beside the kitchen there is. So what used to happen back in the day in my house was the kitchen used to be there, and my grandmommy was young. Just beside the kitchen is the backyard. So there used to be a clay ka stove, okay, a stove made out of clay. So they used to burn wood and cook non-vegetarian food there. And then later they put a like different stove there, the gas stove. But I had never seen it in any Bengali family in like Bengal. Okay, this thing about.
Seriously, I mean,
I went to one of my father's friends' place during Kali Puja. Okay, they gave me mutton as prasad. So I told how is mutton prasad?
Kali Puja is a non-veg thing.
Yeah, so I told how is mutton a prasad? He told because there is no garlic and onion in it.
What?
I was like, okay.
Achha,
Yeah,
no,
there was
yeah.
the masala does not have garlic and onion. So I was like, okay,
no, it won't happen in every puja. It's a Kali Puja thing.
So that's what I'm saying. See, you guys are so confident about it because your parents have lived here. They know the custom. They know you know the culture and all. Okay.
I am not that well versed with the culture, to be honest.
But see, you still have an idea, bro. Like, no. That's what I'm saying. Like,
no,
because
it's not exactly an idea. In my case, is that I do. It's not something that bothers me. I mean,
no, it shouldn't bother you. But the thing is,
no, for some people it matters. Like, I mean, it matters to most people. It matters a little less to me. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know half of the custom.
Your household, but at least you went.
Not my household. It's not a household thing. Like, my parents are pretty well-versed about it.
See, in school you are speaking in Bengali with the kids, okay? Your friends are speaking Bengali. You are going home and speaking in Bengali at your house again. With me, I was speaking Bengali in school, going home and speaking in Hindi. Okay.
No,
then after we were speaking English in school, and then
in school, actually, in school, we used to talk in Hindi as well because we had Marwari friends.
Yeah. But bro, that's the thing. More than you guys learning Hindi, we all learned Bengali, no?
I don't know. In my case, it was a bit opposite. Like I learned, quite a few. In our case, I don't know.
There were many Marwadis bro in school. Like
no, there weren't many Marwadis, but I have to say that I agree with the stereotype that not exactly stereotype. Bengalis have a reputation that they're good at learning languages, and I have to agree with that because
reputation that they're good at doing anything, bro. Singing.
That's something. See, that's something. What? Actually, we do, but.
Yeah, so there was a lot of pressure on me growing up because Bihari kids are useless, only good at maths, and I was never even good at maths. It's a very bad stereotype because see, you will get confused. Okay, there will be times when you will feel like I told you don't belong, because even with a community, bro, like a lot of people I've seen, okay, who used to party, drink alcohol and all, okay. I've seen a lot of my friends turn religious after doing that, because what happens is, like, they are doing so much drugs, they are doing so much parties that like there is a void in their life, okay, and probably converting to a religion or maybe going to church or maybe going somewhere saves them from that void. What happens is they start. So if you see, there is something about church which I like, which is very weird. Because the thing is,
that's completely possible. I also like a few things about almost every religion.
They believe in community, bro. Like if today you think your house is burned down or something, the church will try to help you. They'll try to arrange a sale. They'll try to do anything anything in their power to help you. If you belong to their church, that is. Okay. So,
but the problem is, the problem with that is that's also something we'll find in the villages. The community thing has. It's also something that the villagers have a reputation of. At least in Bengal, I don't know about other places. Like it must be.
There is because see, like in Darjeeling and all, okay.
But that kind of close.
Circle back to Darjeeling because of the documentary thing. My whole research was based on it. So what happens with Darjeeling is there is a 100-200 day strike. Okay, why do you think people can survive a 100 or 200 day strike? People can only survive a 100 day strike or a 200 day strike when they are dependent on each other. Think you have a backyard where you grow onions, okay, and I have a cattle shop. So for 100 day when everything is banned, I don't have cash, you don't have cash, we need food to survive. You give me onion, I'll give you a little bit of chicken. It's like that. So the thing is, community always comes first because of this. And Darjeeling has a very nice community kind of feeling. If you go, you will see this. Okay, you'll see.
I went, but I didn't. It was just a one or 2 day tour. You don't understand much in that.
You will see everyone talks to everyone there. Like people know people. Like you will see random drivers waving at each other while crossing. They will.
I don't know.
You will see a guy like stopping and asking another guy like whether everything is fine in front of him so that I can go on. But that is also very like, their whole thing about community is very nice, which I like. And if you see this, they are very helpful as well. Okay, like, but then again, like I told you, there is fight within that community also when people of different beliefs are there.
There's one thing I have seen in close-knit communities, that close-knit communities have this helping each other thing, but it often comes at a cost of people interfering into each other's personal lives way too much.
No, but I don't think that's interfering. Okay, like, see, human connection is something which is like right now people talk about space and all that bullshit. Okay, like I don't believe in space as much. Like, this can be my space. There can be a person sitting beside me, and this can still be my space if my mind is very calm. Okay. So what is happening is people, even in India, even in villages and all, you will see no one was hesitant to go to the other person's house and ask for something. Okay. Like, also no one was like, there used to be people in my house in the evening coming just to talk with my mom and all. Every evening, the same person coming. Okay. You can say they are invading the privacy, but then the thing is, you need that kind of codependence when you are living, when you are a human being. You need someone to talk to. You need someone to, and you cannot always talk to the people who are close to you. Like my mom cannot come and talk to me about everything. I cannot go and talk to my parents about everything. So I need someone, okay, to talk to. Maybe I talk to my parents about something. Maybe I talk to my friends about something else. Like, right? How this thing, what I'm trying to say. So if I think like I cannot belong. That's the thing. Like, I cannot talk about sex with my parents, right? Because I think that conversation does not belong with them, right? That conversation will probably go well with a friend, right? Like I can ask, but again, that is a very weird conception, okay? Because if I am bringing up a kid who can talk to me about everything, right? Like if I have normalized conversation in my household, then a person will not be scared to ask me anything. Like, so that is the whole point, bro. Like we as humans have done so much, written so much, achieved so much, okay? Like we have come up with philosophies, we have come up with, I don't know, films, we have come up with books, we have come up with non-fiction, science, we've come up with so much shit, okay? But still, the only thing is, we don't understand like the very basic part of human survival. That is community, okay? Like, where do you belong? That is the most basic part of anything, I think. Like, see, when you move to a new house, it takes you some time to adjust because you don't belong to that house. Once you feel like I've set this house according to myself, you feel like you belong. It is like that in everyone's life, bro. Like, you can read 20-30 books and learn about one topic completely, okay? But you will never know the topic until you go and sit with that person, you talk to that person, you experience them in their own shoes. Till then you'll never understand that person. So that is why I think that you don't know privacy wala thing. It doesn't bother me as much, because if I'm not spending 1 or 2 hours a day with someone for 7 days a week, then how do you expect me to know that person properly? Like it's like that most of the times. But that is what it is about. Like when I say about identity and nostalgia and Darjeeling and all, okay, like Darjeeling for me was also a place which I used to love. Okay, I used to love Darjeeling. Like I used to be like, whenever I was a kid, I wanted to go to the hills. Um, for the first time I went to Kurseong, that was the first time I ever went to a hill to give my examination. Okay, like I was getting into a boarding school, so I went to Kurseong, and like it felt very good. Okay, until 2 years ago, I did not know the history, and I used to love Darjeeling. Like I didn't know the history of the place. I didn't know the whole. I knew there was a Gorkhaland agitation. I had heard about it in news, but I never know what it was about. So it is most of the times it is like that. You will never know what it is about. You like see when I started making this documentary, a lot of people asked me why are you making it. I still didn't know. After I came from Pune, after my scripting was done, research was done, I came from Pune. I spoke to a lot of people who face this problem. Okay, who have been treated like outsiders despite being and not just Nepalis, bro. Northeast, okay, Northeast has been always like treated as not a part of India. Okay, so I'll show you something again. So you know India's map, right? See this, right? Nepal. You see this Nepal, Bhutan, China, Bangladesh. Okay. Now let's go here. Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan. Okay. So these are different countries. Nepal and Bhutan become different countries. Okay. Can you see this small part where Sikkim is? So that is called Chicken's Neck, that area. Because it looks like the chicken's neck, see?
Yeah, it does. I mean,
it's a very small area, this much. See, Siliguri, Gangtok.
I heard the name and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a chicken's neck. So what happens is, see, if the government gives Darjeeling, this proposed area is Darjeeling, Siliguri, this all. See, no, Falagada is so close to Bhutan. I told you, no, Falagada belongs to Bhutan. It is a part of Bhutan. So they have asked for. There are two regions. Like if you see the river, it's dividing it's dividing India into two regions. One is Terai, okay, and the other one's name I forgot. Like Terai. One is and one is Duars. So the Terai region is
Duars. Okay, yeah,
and Duars region is this side. Can you see like how it's divided now? So what happens is if the government gives this top area off as a separate state, okay, this entire area, if they give as a separate state, what happens is this whole thing becomes Sikkim also has majority population of Nepalis, okay, Nepalis, and Bhutan kind of like they have a different religion and all, but just for the sake of the argument, let's say that this whole thing, this whole belt, this whole topmost belt, okay, this entire belt will become Greater Nepal then. If Darjeeling also falls there, so what happens is you cannot. What did Britishers do? Britishers they did was they gave Indians our rights and all. Okay, they told us to rule without teaching us how to rule. Are you getting it? So you cannot just give you cannot just give that part to as a separate state to Nepalis, okay? Because you don't know whether they'll be able to rule the place or not, okay? Whether they'll be able to not rule, because education is not good enough for them right now, till now. Okay, so you don't know like what you need to give proper. You need to give proper education to people. You need to uh, let them, know the administration and how it works and how it should work, so that they can bring about changes and work towards betterment for it. Okay. Now, what happens is once this whole and another thing is, if you give up the area, when you give a state, you also give the military, right? You give defense, you give medical, you give a lot of things. Person who is like, so the people of that place should also know how to control those things, right? So if they don't know how to control that thing, what did I tell you? That place is called the chicken's neck. Okay. If China, okay, think if China infiltrates this place, this place, India gets divided into two parts. Northeast on one side and India on the other side. Do you get it? Like, if only this place is broken, India is divided into two, bro. On left is India, on the right is Northeast. Do you see how small this place is? No wonder no one fucking cares about it. On the right side, what is on the other side of this place? No one cares about it. Everything is seven sisters. See, Tripura, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Arunachal, Assam, Meghalaya, Sikkim. This entire is seven sisters, right? We call it seven sisters. So, if China even infiltrates Sikkim, it divides India into half. Now, that is what I think. Like, that is what happens when you are in governance. Like, you have to look at everything, but you have to. So one guy, when I asked him this question, that how do you expect to run the administration yourself? Okay, he told something like, "Fuck all this. Like, we don't need anything like this. Okay, we don't need this or that. What we need is give us good education. We want to become IAS, IPS, and we'll run the country. Why will we need a separate state to run if we run the country?" Okay, like, it's very commendable, right? If they want to become IAS, IPS, and if you're giving them enough opportunities, they can run the country. So they will never look for a separate state to run if they can run the country. Because you look at it this way, bro. Like, you look at anything this way. We have been conditioned to think a certain way, okay? Like, before Britishers invaded India, India was very rich, they say. But they have never taught about it in history. Why? Why are you not teaching us about that? When you say India was so rich and all that, you just directly start from when Britishers invaded India. You talk about Mughals, you talk about, talking about Mughals, they're talking about so many. The first, like, I remember Harappan civilization, I remember Mohenjo-daro civilization, okay? That comes from India, right? Like, we are taught about it at the start itself. Then, that is something to be proud about, because it's the oldest civilization ever, right? And it was founded in India, right? But that time it wasn't India. So, like, we never called it India that time. It was just Harappan civilization, Mohenjo-daro civilization, okay? So the whole painting that you get, that India was like this, India was like that, they are just taking 3-4 different chunks of land, putting it together, and now calling it India. Like, on the left, this was happening, on the right, this was happening.
Like, the riches and all we're talking about was from an era when the term and the country as India as we know today didn't exist.
But, bro, like, why are we not taught about that? Okay. And that is the reason for most of my confusion as well. I always imagine India as India, okay? But then I have to keep in mind, before independence, India was not India. It was Pakistan and Bangladesh together. That was the map of India before independence. Before that, probably India was even bigger. At a point of time, India wasn't India. They were just kings of different regions fighting for land. So it's so confusing, because when we are taught it like it's India, but it wasn't India back in the day. Like, the first piece of land ever in the world was Pangaea. Okay. So You cannot say India comes from Pangea, no?
Of course.
But today you cannot say that, oh my God, you remember when India was with Australia, we had so much riches. You cannot say that like that. Because that time it was just one piece of land. When we talk about kings, we have to talk about Mughals, okay, conquering the entire India. Mughals never conquered the entire India, they just conquered most of the north part of India. Awadh, Lucknow, all those places. No, like Agra and all, so the Mughal history is mostly towards the north. The south no one talks about. Northeast, very few people talk about it, okay. Like right now in India, most of the people don't even know that northeast is. They don't even I don't think people even acknowledge that side of India, the eastern side of India. See, for example, think of it this way. If you see a Bengal tourism ad, okay, most of the ads is shot in Calcutta. But there is so much more than Calcutta in Bengal. North Bengal is so beautiful. How much North Bengal? In a tourism video about Bengal, there is not much North Bengal. Why do you think the entire world will care about it? If Bengal itself doesn't care about it. We care about Darjeeling because, it is a tourist destination. That is why there were 1 or 2 frames of Darjeeling, let's say. Like a few frames. But the entire thing was Calcutta, bro, if you see properly. Calcutta, around Calcutta. All those places are around Calcutta only. There was nothing about Jayanti Hills. Jayanti is known for dolomite mining. Like, the king of Kuch Bihar used to mine dolomite from there. But there are a lot of wild animals there, so it doesn't happen anymore. Also, some shit happened, like dolomite should not be mined. Like, they passed a rule in Jayanti Hills because it was depleting or something like that. So they don't talk about Jayanti, they don't talk about Rajabhat Khawa, Nimti. So much, bro. Nimti, Rajabhat Khawa and all have tea gardens, okay? As much as the hills. If not more. They probably even have more than the hills. Tea gardens in the plains, like Nimti. Near Kuch Bihar, that Mathura tea estate, bro, while going towards Chilapata.
I've been there.
There's so much shit that the Bhutan road, bro, you can see the entire Bhutan while you go on the road, where these are not treated like tourist destinations. So you're getting what I'm trying to say. Bengal is no wonder the idea for the world about Bengal is just Calcutta. Because Calcutta has been romanticized throughout the years. Like North Bengal hasn't been romanticized. They showed Darjeeling. Okay, they could have shown ahead of Darjeeling, Kafair, Lava. Okay, a lot of places, Kalimpong. Okay, they
Rocky Island.
Tiger Hill, bro.
Tiger Hill, yeah, exactly, Tiger Hill.
Kanchenjunga. Then this thing, Sandarfu. There's a lot of shit that can be shown, but it's not shown. So that is what I wanted to show you. Like, the perception of India about Bengal just being Calcutta is portrayed by Calcutta. Okay. So no wonder we have identity issues. Not Bengal. No, Rajvanshis and all also have a lot of problems, like there are so many tribes in Bengal, okay? There are around, wait, I'll tell you, I did my research, there are around 37 tribes or something in Bengal. I'll tell you all of their names also. I have written. See, Bhutia, Sherpa, Toto, Dulpa. Okay, wait. Bhutia, Toto, Mech, Munda, Orao, Lepcha, Santal, Rabha. These tribes are still there. Santhal is on the verge of extinction, bro.
But Santhal is the most popular one.
It is on the verge of extinction. That is what I'm saying. People know about Santhal because Santhal has adapted to the Bengali culture. Okay. Like, you check, Santhal is on the verge of extinction. I was reading about it a few times.
It mostly talks about their art forms though, but I get the point. Oh, language
Yeah,
as
but
well, of course.
language also, because of cultural assimilation, they had to adapt to Bengali, the Bengali speaking masses. Even if you see, Bengali dialect has changed so much. Now the dialect is so simplified. Back in the day, it was so difficult.
Ha ha
Like
ha. It happens with everything.
like Rabindranath Tagore writing things like "Ami akashe pati aata hai." I don't think anyone will say things like that. We'll just say
No,
like,
no, that you cannot putting words in a poem is a bit different because their rhythm and phonetic is more important than simplicity.
like no, but I don't think even books is the same thing. The
No, no,
language, the
it has changed, of course. I'm just saying that example is not the best one to give. I mean, like,
what? No, even with poem, the whole dialect has changed. Okay, during his time, it was probably like that. People were talking like the way he shows it. You know, the way he maybe not as the way he says. I mean, not like that. Like Ami Agashe Patya. He may not talk like that, but there will be some things from there, right? Even with that song, okay, Dekhechi Upsha Gore Moner Manush Kacha Show. I don't think we talk like that. I have seen a lot of people talk like that though. Like a lot of people who speak Bengali, proper Bengali, or people who are graduates from Jenkins and all can speak like that. But we don't. So it has changed over the years.
you can also notice the difference between the way we talk depending on where the Bengali person is coming from. Like the Ghoti and Bengal difference.
But that is very small, bro. You can get it like like every location, every district has a different dialect. Okay, like it's as simple as biryani. Like every place you go, every 100 meters you go, the taste of biryani will change. Are you getting it? Like
it's
not
the
because
same with
Bengali biryani is different. You go to Calcutta, biryani is different. You go to Hyderabad, biryani is different. You go within villages, biryani will be different. So it's as simple as that. Food, people, language will keep changing. Okay, the base of it all is the culture. Okay, it's like base of it all. So you should know about it. You should understand it. You should be able to, like, I can converse in Bhojpuri. Okay, but I don't. And if I don't do it, think this language in my family dies with my generation, because I don't think my kids will be speaking in Bhojpuri. Okay, like I'll be speaking in Hindi with them. Even if I know Bhojpuri, it's dying within me as well, because I cannot speak the language as fluently as I should be able to.
It's mostly because you don't have people to converse in Bhojpuri with.
I don't speak in Bhojpuri, that's why. But that's the thing, bro. Like, it will die with me. That's it. The knowledge of the language will die with me. Like, you're getting what I'm trying to say. I can speak. If I think hard enough, I'll be able to speak. But that knowledge also will die with me, because I know it will not be passed on to my kids, or it will never be passed on to. Also, another thing is, see, a lot of people forget this. When two people outside of culture, okay, outside of their culture or outside of their community marry, so they should be able to learn one another's culture. That is how they will, be remembered. Like, but right now the world, like, do you know how dumb the world has gotten? The world has become very different, bro. Everything has changed. Kids' attention span has been reduced to 10-second videos. Like when I was a kid, I could watch a movie, sit and watch a movie, and I would not get bored. But now kids change content every 10 seconds. You get it? Like, and back in the day, movie was 3 hours long. Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, I could sit and watch at one sitting. So, what I'm trying to say is, bro, like, coming back to the start is identity is very important. Identity helps you a lot, okay? When you are lost, it will help you. You might not be lost today. You might not be lost tomorrow. You might not be lost when you are 18. You might not be lost when you are 25. But you can get lost in the future. You can get lost today. You might not be, but it will happen. And everyone gets lost. Because it's very easy to get lost. So to know where you belong becomes very interesting. Like when so think of it this way, okay? When you go to college for the first time, you're sitting with a lot of friends and all. Uh, you eat something and then your friend says something like, "My mom used to make this and all during one event." So you also remember something which is totally different. Like think you are eating payesh and someone comes and tells you, you tell someone that my mom used to make it when I used to have my birthday and all, and then he says, does it happen in every Bengali household? So you say yes, because every Bengali household has to cut payesh before the cake, right? So in one way you're teaching the other person about your culture just by sitting with him and eating. That's it. So it's as simple as that, bro. To preserve your culture is as simple as that. Make it into stories, tell it to people. You don't have to force them to practice it, okay? But it so like, have you ever felt that there was a time in Pune when I was eating burgers and all and everything, and then suddenly one day I eat dal and chawal and I feel like home. Like, you're getting what I'm trying to say. You're eating fast food every day and suddenly you eat dal and chawal and you feel like home. But a foreigner will eat burger, pizza and all every day, and one day eat dal chawal and just feel like they have gone out and ate something different. Okay, so it varies for us, for them, for everyone. And so you obviously think, where am I from? Where do I belong? And that happens to everyone. I think anyone who denies it, where do I belong, that question popping
It
up in
happens
anyone's
to everyone. It's just that some people, it's not the not all people have the same level of insecurity or curiosity, or what should I put it, like emotional bondage or something like that to it. But the question,
No,
I'm pretty sure the question at least
you should
comes.
know. You should know where you come from. It will help you in your darkest days. You get it? Like, you will know better sleeping where you are from. I would definitely know better. This time when I went to Bihar, bro, I saw what Bihar is like, okay. And I appreciated Bengal 1,000 times. But there is something in Bihar that I feel like,
It's home.
I don't know, it's just weird. Yeah, it's not home. Bengal is home. But Bihar is like a part of me. Like, there is a part of me that is Bihari, right? So Bihar is a part of me. It doesn't feel like home. Bengal feels like home because I have completely adopted to this culture.
And plus, what we feel like home mostly depends on where our childhood and how our childhood have been. So your entire childhood has been in Bengal, so that's your home.
But when I go to Bihar, okay, where my childhood hasn't had, I don't even have any memories of my childhood from
Wait,
Bihar.
you have lived in Bihar?
No, I haven't. We used to go there for vacations and all sometimes.
Okay.
But I don't remember, anything about that place. This time when I went, I don't know, it feels a little weird. Like, you feel a little bit more like yourself. I would put it like that. Like, it is the way I felt when I went to Kurshong. I felt like myself a little more. Like, Kurshong was that for me. So, Bihar also felt a little like that. But home is definitely Bengal. So that's the thing. Knowing, I sleep better in Bengal knowing that a part of me feels like Bihar. It's like that.
So, Holmes, thanks a lot for listening to this episode, the second episode of the podcast, Exploring Beyond the Superficial. And if you liked what you heard, what you listened to, please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening to. And share it with your friends to keep me motivated to continue with more episodes, bring guests. And if you want to connect to me on other social media platforms, you can find me in all pretty much most of the popular ones like main Instagram as the same name, Xandriet XS, XANDRIETH XS. And you can find my guest Aditya Mohan on Instagram as well under the user handle Mohanwa, which is MOHANWA. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can find further information in the description. See you again in the next episode. Till then, matane.